And now, the co-founder of Burbank Fair Housing, Mr. Ron Banks.
And these guys are a hard act to follow. As far as the rent registry, which is now been given the euphemism of data collection, there are laws that prevent me from giving out any personal information on a tenant, even if it's from the police department requesting it, because it's private information. And what do you think, as far as any information on the tenant or their domicile, how much rent you're paying? How are we going to say that that doesn't violate that trust? If the city pursues this course, I will send a letter to my tenants informing them of the ordinance and offering them to agree to disclosure, to prohibit the disclosure, or to not respond, which I will take as them saying no. And let the city try and do data mining without a full set of data. What are they going to do? It's been a long understanding that a demand for a federal identification number, your social security number, your EIN, your TIN, can be requested by entities conducting financial transactions for you. So it's reportable on your tax return. What is the city going to do? One of the first things they want on the sample information they're requesting is your federal identification number. What is the value of knowing how many bedrooms there are? What it gets down to is, the one time I was on a jury, and I was the foreman, we were beat into that the fair price is that what a seller wants and a buyer is willing and able to give. That's a lot of money. It's in the eyes of the beholder, another way of putting it. What possible reason would they need to know why the previous tenant vacated? They want to know if it was no fault, at fault, eviction, etc. That's ancient history. What does that have to do with this tenancy? So why are they asking for that? They want the start date of the tenancy, initial rent, current rent, is ancient history. Because if there's ever a claim, they're going to want to ask the tenant, what the housing provider, or what the current conditions are, because the data could be old. All right? So if there is a claim by a tenant that we're charging too much rent, they need to go get the current data. Why do you need data collection? I think we're asking for the wrong thing. We're asking why the city needs it. We need to ask, how is it going to be used? Right? The fundamental question is, why is the city acquiescing to the BTU's demands that it attack housing providers? The fact that other cities have imposed rent control, which is something they always want the staff to go through and research, should not be a consideration unless the dismal effects that have always occurred is also included. Why does Burbank want to be a lemming? We have had 8 actions by the city attorney's office. That's on a report that Chris brought up. And when he was talking at the VAOR a while ago, he said 3, and I thought he misspoke, and I called him out for that. I learned yesterday that of the 8 that referred to the city attorney, okay, that they sent a letter out, only 3 of them were apparently in action against the landlord. And I've been at the podium asking specifically, of those 8 letters, how many were letters to the landlord with the tenant copy, and how many were to the tenant with the landlord copy? I'm still waiting for an answer. I have never publicly spoken until January 31st, 2023, because Bob Frutis told me that rent control was coming to Burbank. So I went to that meeting, all right, and I spoke. And I missed 4 meetings in those nearly 3 years. 1 is my allergies are killing me. 2 is I had COVID. 3 is I had a cousin flying in from Texas. I had to pick him up at the airport. And the 4th one, which is the best one, is it was my wife's 47th wedding anniversary.
Oh, but not yours?
You got that? Well, I'm not seem like a martyr because Mike Darien came on his anniversary to speak. Thank you. This here, the meaning of this is those 8 complaints I talked about referred to the city attorney. That's 0.03%. There's 26,000 units in Burbank. So for 1 in every 3,000 units, there's a problem. They want to give you 100% punishment. And we found out it's really 3, so that drops it to 0.012. So every 9,000 units in Burbank reports a problem. And yet they want to impose rent control on everyone. One thing that I failed to mention is the city council back in September of 2023 allocated $500,000 plus $100,000 for HALA to administrate a program to help needy tenants. They were only able to give away $270,000, okay, to qualified tenants. So there was a pilot program of what we've been advocating that worked well, didn't cost a lot, and yet the city council buries their head in the sand.